Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Soul Focused Radio. This is your host, Martin Friedman. And only Martin Friedman this time. That's right. I am here to intro an amazing conversation between Cindy Edwards and her husband, Kelly Edwards. And it is a great look into self accountability, personal accountability when it comes to parenting. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the intro today because I really want you all to listen to this. I want to let you know it will be in two parts. They kind of closed out the first part, and then I asked them a question and I asked them to make it a part two. So we have two parts for today around personal accountability and parenting. And I just want to remind you to always, as always, to like, to subscribe, to comment on our YouTube podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Android, subscribe, please share. Share this with every parent that you know. I think there's some really powerful cycle breaking examples here, a lot of vulnerability, and I just think it's awesome, and I'm excited for you to hear it. So I won't talk any longer. So here we go with parts 1 and 2 of personal accountability and parenting. Enjoy.
When you come to the Soul Focus Group, you come to an acknowledgement that there has been injuries done to us from all these different forms of oppression. Injuries that have impacted our subconscious mind, our heart, our spirit, our very soul. So at the Soul Focus Group, we recognize that and we focus on healing. Healing, the return or the recovery of our connections to our healthy self, our beautiful thinking mind. We want you to come join us in a movement of healing all around the world to restore us back to our rightful state. At the Soul Focus Group, we heal.
Hey everybody, this is your host, Cindy Edwards, and I would like to welcome you all to my segment on soul-focused parenting. Today, I am joined by a very special person, my husband, Kelly Edwards, and we will be continuing our conversation around personal accountability and how it relates to parenting. So, hi, would you like to say hello to our listeners?
What's going on, everybody? Appreciate everybody tuning in today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. On our first episode around personal accountability, I had defined personal accountability as taking responsibility and full ownership of my actions and my behaviors. I'd like to hear your thoughts on how you would define personal accountability.
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. I think I'm a big fan of maximum accountability. So not only taking accountability of your actions, but also without being too harsh on yourself, just finding ways that you could handle situations a little bit better. So, I'm a big fan. I'm a basketball coach, and I'm a teacher and an educator at heart, and that's my passion. And I'm always preaching that you should be finding ways to always evaluate yourself. And I think constructive criticism, and the key word is constructive criticism, is crucial to development, not only in the youth, but in, adults. So always in a constant review process of how we could do things better, having a high standard for yourself. But that would be my definition.
Awesome. That's a great definition, actually. With you mentioning being a teacher and a mentor to youth, how do you instill that? How would we instill that into our children, our 3 babies that we're currently raising right now? And why do you think that's important to instill personal accountability?
I think accountability is the mark of is one of the key marks of a high integrity individual. Being able to take accountability and realize that we're imperfect beings is something that is crucial. If you don't have the ability to take accountability and realize that you're not perfect, that you're always a work in progress, it's really going to stunt your growth and limit your possibilities. So we, as parents, we want to raise our kids to be the best kids that they can possibly be, to realize that they're always a work in progress and be able to evaluate things constructively without really getting down on themselves. I feel like building confidence for young individuals, boys and girls, is a sensitive topic, right? And everyone kind of has their own characteristics, where some people can take constructive criticism and some people might be a little bit more sensitive. So parenting, as everyone knows, is not a one size fits all, and I think that it's always a puzzle in terms of when to push and when to pull back a little bit. But teaching personal accountability, I feel, is right up there with it's an integrity module, right? So you have to know what's right from wrong. It's right up there with being truthful and high morals and high values. So I think that's an integral part of parenting.
Definitely. And, I definitely agree. I think that's one of our biggest value is instilling integrity and teaching our children humility. And it's super important to be able to model that for them.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think as you just said, modeling it is the best way to teach it, I think, right? Because at a young age, the kids kind of evaluate everything, and my children in particular, is on what's fair, right? So if you tell them personal, you need to make sure you're holding yourself accountable, personal accountability, taking accountability for your actions, right or wrong, but then you're not doing the work yourself, the kids are your children, I think will listen to you because they know that you're the parent, and they know it's right to listen to you, but it won't really resonate. And they may just be listening to you because they quote unquote have to, because you're their parent. But if you're modeling accountability in your relationship, with your marriage, your friendships, possibly at work or whatever they're exposed to, then I feel that's the best way to teach that to your kids, right? Because a lot of times the kids learn by visually. A lot of kids are visual learn, like show me instead of telling me. Right. So you really have to walk that walk if you want your kids to be like that.
Definitely. And in modeling that, what's an example that you've practiced self-accountability or personal accountability with our children?
I think I've tried to, as challenging as that is, I've tried to really put myself in, your children's shoes. And it's sometimes it can be hard, with our oldest, my oldest son is our oldest son, is very intelligent. And sometimes I can put adult expectations on him, and I have to just be very aware and conscious of that. And, each of my children are very different. It's kind of crazy how that happens. They all get raised in the same household with the same rules by the same people, but they're all very different. So being very conscious of not putting adult expectations on children and letting them kind of walk through mistakes. And also, I feel like apologizing when I was growing up, there wasn't really a lot of apologizing for misbehaviors of adults, right? It was just adults were quote unquote never really wrong. And there was a lot of because I said so. And I catch myself saying that sometimes too, when, kids naturally will question things, right? They're learning things every day, and all this stuff is new to them. They haven't been on the world long enough, to really understand and be as seasoned as adults, right? So when they ask questions that they're 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, they're not asking a question to challenge you or to be disrespectful. They genuinely don't know. But sometimes you can take that question as, well, what do you mean? Because I said so, right? And that's where you're getting away from teaching. Mm-hmm. And you're being more like a dictator, right? When you tell a kid something, it's because you want them to understand. Like, you don't want to raise robots where they just, can follow instructions. They can't think for themselves. They don't really comprehend anything. So getting away from I told you so has been something, that I've been trying to do as much as I can. I catch myself. And I think the second thing is apologizing when you feel like you were wrong. And I feel like you do a really good job of that, of recognizing when maybe you misunderstood them, or maybe it was an emotional decision, or, whatever it was, but not being afraid to apologize to your children. And a part of that, constructive criticism or personal accountability is recognizing when you're wrong. So if you can show them, hey, mommy and daddy will be wrong sometimes, you guys are definitely going to be wrong. You guys are just learning this whole thing, where we're going to figure it out together.
Right. I definitely do apologize a lot. And I think it's really important to normalize apologizing, right? When when you feel like you've made a mistake, right? There's been times where I've lost my cool, and I think it's in that moment, it's really important to make amends, and so I definitely, just thinking about it, I do apologize a lot. And I think that's something I want to teach the children is like, when you make a mistake, or, you have, you make a mistake, or you do something unintentionally or intentionally, like you got to correct that, right? And by doing so, you got to make amends for whatever that mistake was. And in most cases, it's accepting responsibility and personal accountability, and then apologizing in order to make the amends and move forward and learn from the situation. And I think that's something that it's so important to teach our children. So,
and when when you do that, you also open a space for them to be able to speak for themselves. Like, you hear a lot of parents like, well, why didn't you tell me this? And sometimes, it could be some fault of the parent. It could be, it's not really appropriate to blame or give someone why certain kids aren't comfortable doing certain things. But pretty much all behavior is learned, right? So I feel when you create a safe environment you're creating a safe environment by apologizing and realizing that you're opening the door to kids to be able to express themselves. And sometimes I'll laugh at KJ because KJ will tell you exactly what he feels. Mm-hmm. Like when I maybe have done something or whatever, and maybe like I was kind of playing with him and push him on the ground or whatever, and we were wrestling or whatever, like he'll go and tell me like, Daddy, I didn't really like that. Right. And it's kind of funny hearing it because he's 5-6 years old. But I love that about him, is that he will tell you exactly what, it doesn't matter who it is. Mm-hmm. But part of that is because, like, I can't imagine doing that. A lot of times there's things that I didn't like that I was growing up, but I didn't feel I had the space to vocalize that. But I feel like because the way you and I have the environment that we've created in our house and in our life, our kids feel comfortable. And it's just, you have to catch yourself in terms of taking it disrespectfully. And you and I are big on respect, and me for sure. But we just have to be, I feel like I've been very conscious of, instead of kind of being like, who are you talking to? Really kind of taking the lens of who's actually saying this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I think that it's a beautiful thing that he feels comfortable speaking to adults and being able to vocalize his feelings and his emotions. Even a lot of adults can't do that. So
I will commend you, because in that moment, you acknowledge that, like, okay, you don't like how rough I was, and you're like, I'm sorry, like, I didn't mean to hurt you. And so in that moment, that's you taking accountability. Even if you didn't feel like you were intentionally doing something, your action has caused discomfort to somebody. And in that moment, you took responsibility and you apologized to our son.
Because the younger Kelly would have been like, man, stop being soft. You know what I mean? It would just kind of brush that under the rug. But like realizing that, you have very small opportunities with children, right? Like, children will go kind of put their foot out there and see how you react. And if they feel scared, or they feel that their words weren't received properly, then they'll go back into their shell. And sometimes they never come back out. So you have to continue anytime you see those. And it's an extremely small window, right? Like, if those 2 or 3 seconds, if I would have reacted improperly or aggressively or negatively or shut down his feelings, then who knows when he would have opened back up. And, KJ is a strong, minded individual. Maybe it wouldn't have affected him, but it's a vulnerable spot to be in. You have to make sure that you're creating an environment for your kids to feel vulnerable.
Right. Right. So what I'm hearing from you is, one, we're creating a safe environment for our kids to be able to open up to us, and practicing self-accountability is one of those factors of creating a safe environment, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's no parent in America that if you ask them and they would be like, hey, would you want your kids not to be able to talk to you? Right. But then they would say that. But then now if you go in and dig a little bit deeper and say, well, what environment are you creating in your house for your children to feel comfortable, bringing up their concerns to you? So I think really controlling your emotional reactions to everything. And quite frankly, that's a skill that applies in life, not just parenting, right? Like being able to, you can't control your emotions, but you're not responsible for your emotion, but you're responsible for your emotional reactions. How you react to everything is what you're held accountable for, right? So being able to teach that to your children is essential, right? Because they're emotional beings, and they should be. And you never want to turn off. You turn off the emotions of a child. The detriment and the blowback from that as an adult will be tremendous, right? But the trauma, then the pent up, and not being able to release, and all that type of stuff. And I dealt with some of that stuff, right? With me growing up and being taught to be the machismo man and super alpha and all that stuff like that. There was a period of time where I turned off a lot of my emotions. Like I was talking to Dustin a little bit ago, and there was like a period, I think of like 7 years, where like I didn't really cry, I didn't show emotions, and you were just taught to be this quote unquote tough guy, and you just have to be careful of, I think everybody would agree, myself, maybe not everybody, but myself, I would want my kids to be tough to a certain degree, and kind of be able to push through things, because life is not going to be easy. However, I would never want my children to not be in tune with their emotions and not recognize or feel comfortable that they can't express themselves, because that's where a lot of dangerous things happen. You talk about maybe suicide or kids hurting themselves just because the more you pent things up, it's even that much harder to control that reaction. And everybody has a breaking point.
Right. And that's why, I'm so grateful, with this generation. I feel like we've all been more in tune with how we parent, right? And I feel like when I was younger, there was no soul focused parenting. I wasn't raised with gentle parenting, right? It was very authoritative and punitive. And I think in this generation, we've been more exposed to a different way of thinking and a different way of parenting. Because, even as a younger child myself, and I know you, babe, like we didn't get a lot of apologies when our parents made mistakes, right? Like it is what it is. And that's why it's so awesome, the times that we're in now, because I'm more conscious of how I react to our children. And, I think this is a really fun journey to be on, especially with you. And so, yeah, thank you so much for joining me on this journey and sharing your thoughts on personal accountability and how it's important, in parenting.
For sure. I think it's of the utmost importance. And, now I agree that, we were raised in different times, and, everybody always kind of can make that claim that, oh, it was different when I was growing up and when I was a kid, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is the world is always changing, and, for better or for worse. And I think it's our responsibility, not only with our kids, but, there's millions and billions of other parents around as well. And that's where platforms like Soul Focus Group, can really be beneficial to, entire generations just outside of our immediate circle, to be able to share these type of messages.
My genius, my power, my optimal functioning. My genius, my power, my optimal functioning. Repeat after me. My genius, my power, my optimal functioning. That is the jingle of the Soul Focus Group, because we are dedicated to helping you recover your genius, your power, and your optimal functioning. We want you to recognize the unique way that you comprehend things, express yourself, experience, and create in the world. We want to help you recover your genius, your power, your optimal functioning.
Yes, absolutely. Just one more thing before we close out. I want to talk to you, like, what areas of improvement do you think, or what areas do you think we can improve better on with practicing personal accountability with our children?
For me, is probably would be patience. I feel like depends. Sometimes I can be triggered. My life can get a little bit, a little hectic, whether work or, just personal life or the kids or whatever it is. Life is always a roller coaster. And, we've been really blessed to have a great life. But even with great lives and very, very blessed lives, I feel that you have your ups and downs, right? That's just how life is meant to be. And I wouldn't change it for the world. However, with those ups and downs, comes, the emotional roller coaster as well. So sometimes it can be hard to in the moment because it's all about, reacting properly in the moment. And I try to take, maximum accountability of my reaction in the moment. So really being at peace and trying to make sure that I stay as even keeled as possible with recognizing my emotions and not, sweeping them under a rug, but also recognizing maybe when I'm triggered or when I'm a little bit more hostile or irritated, and getting back to that kind of central place of calmness and peace. That's going to be. And again, I don't feel like I have this super tumultuous life and stressed all the time. Now, again, I think I'm very thankful for everything that I have and the life that I have and my babies and my wife. But I would say patience would be the biggest thing. Sometimes I can be a very impatient person. And when you're impatient, it's very hard to take accountability, and that kind of puts you in an uneasy state. So practicing patience is something that, I would want my children to be patient. I would want my wife to be patient. And ultimately, most importantly, I would want myself to be patient. So I think patience is my mother used to say patience is a virtue. So definitely practicing patience would be my biggest point of emphasis.
Yeah, they definitely still say that now. Patience is a virtue.
For sure.
Well, thank you for sharing that. For me, I think it's about an area that I can improve on is being consistent and not just personal accountability for myself, but also being consistent with instilling that with the children, right? And like it could be as simple as, when the kids are playing, right? Like we have a rule that if you're going to play with your toys, there's a rule that you need to clean it up when you're done, right? And there are times where the kids, they play and eventually they get too tired and they're like, oh, we don't want to clean it up. And as much as it'd be easier to be like, okay, and then we as a parent go clean it up ourselves because we just don't want to have that power struggle with our kids and keep fighting about who's going to clean up the mess. You just got to be very calm and consistent and say, hey, we have this role in the house and it's understood by all of us, right? Children and adults, that once you're done playing, it's time to clean up. And, I feel like if I don't hold that rule and stay consistent and hold them accountable to making their own, to cleaning up their own mess, they're going to take that message and think that, you know what, it is okay for me to break the rules sometimes. And so I think for me, it's important to practice consistency with accountability, from both ends, whether it be from a parental standpoint or from, our kids' standpoint. So,
and I think it's really easy to, I think for myself, I'm an extreme consistent person, right? Like for me, I'll go to no wit's end to prove a point from a consistency standpoint. Like, no, this is the rule where it is all the time. And I think if we don't have consistency, then that's where you kind of get the, well, maybe I'll go to mommy for this and mommy lets me get away with this sometimes, or daddy lets me get away with this sometimes, but, mommy doesn't or whatever. And then now they kind of, ultimately kids are going to try to figure out the best way to get what they want. But if you get extreme consistency from, and of course you can always use your judgment, but if you get extreme consistency from both parents, that's how you really nail home values.
Right. And that's something that, you and I hold each other accountable to, especially, with me. You definitely hold me accountable, and I'm holding myself accountable to being more consistent with the rules that we have around our house.
For sure.
So, well, awesome. This was a very fun segment. Thank you once again, babe, for joining me, and I hope our listeners find value in this.
Thank you.
At the Soul Focus Group, we're probably one of the first organizations in the social justice movement to find ourselves moving away from fighting against racism to creating human solidarity. What we found is that we could fight 24 hours, 48 hours, or all our lives, and after fighting all this time, we have nothing to show for it. inadequate because we haven't created anything for ourselves. At the Soul Focus Group, we are one of the few organizations who have moved from fighting against racism to creating an alternative to racism. And we invite you to join us. Let's stop fighting and start creating the outcome we really want to experience.
All right, everybody. Well, I really hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I found the conversation to be, as I said in the intro, I found it to be powerful, vulnerable, applicable, and really a lot about how Cindy and Kelly are in a practice to break generational cycles around parenting and modeling for their kids. So I really hope you enjoyed this. Please remember to comment, come to soulfocusgroup.com to check out what we're offering. We want every one of you to be on this journey with us. We love you. We care about you. We mean that. We really do. And if you want to see that we love and care about you, come join us for anything that we do. Reach out to us, send us an email, comment. We just really appreciate you all listening. And I will ask you by myself this time to do what we always want you to do, which is to stay safe, stay well, and most of all, stay soul focused.